Thank you, everyone, for coming out here tonight. You deserve a big round of applause. When they asked how many people were here before, that was only 1/3, so we have 2/3 new people here. So we're really excited about that. And I'm going to see if in the slideshow. Whoops. Sorry, don't mind me about it. Raise up your mic. Okay. Thank you so much, Brian. You're welcome. Is that all right? Yep, that's great. As it goes. Switch it on. Great. Whoa. Okay, everybody can hear me okay? Yeah. Wonderful. So I'm going to follow this slideshow here that I put together to try and get across what Bill 44 is doing to our province, our people. It's just wreaking havoc, and unfortunately it's been mandated through to us through provincial legislation. So the city has no say in this. They're just choked off on this. And then that gets passed down to us in legislation as well, too. Now, is that a fair democratic society? No. Didn't think so. But then you're seeing more and more shades of that as we're going through our government, but that's a little political statement. So Bill 54 is new provincial housing legislation. And what I'm going to cover here are these items. So I'm going to make mine short, and I'm counting on everybody to be able to read this. Where it's a little fine, I'll try and read it through for you. So what's that mean for Nanaimo? Well, today I'm going to tell you 100% fact. I'm not going to make up any stories or any fiction here. Okay, Bill 44, the facts. It's been passed by the provincial MLAs. The legislation was passed onto all BC municipalities. No question. It was mandated to the cities. They're stuck with following through on this legislation. How is that a fair democratic society? Thank you. It's not. Okay, and to make a mandatory rezoning adjustments to update official community plans, we just got done with a 640-page official community plan that was supposed to last us 20 years. Well, this shredded a good portion of this. And it's unfortunate because they were trying to be fair and reasonable. You'll see in a moment a picture for that. It's to incorporate the new zoning rules. It's to speed up housing development by streamlining the approval process. Densification, read through the lines. To integrate increased density with adequate infrastructure. And to integrate environmental impact, blah, 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 blah. The deadline for that was June 30th. It was completed by the city to follow the mandate that they had from the province. They were handcuffed. So sorry. They were handcuffed. They had no say on this. But there's hope. Whoop, that way. Come on, help me. Just needs to go forward. Oh, maybe the battery went out. Yeah. Press the right arrows on it. Where's the whole frame? There's the right enough there. Now it's working. Thank you, technician Dr. Norm, on top of all his other duties. All right, so how did this happen? Well, the bill was passed with the backing of the governing New Democratic Party. I just need to indicate that. It's part of the British Columbia government's broader housing strategy. It was framed as necessary to address housing crisis, and it was argued that the bill will help increase housing supply by enabling more small-scale multi-unit housing developments. Small scale is 4, 8, 12, 16 units on a residential lot. They saw it as crucial to making housing more affordable and accessible. It's not. And in major part, it's an effort to expedite housing development in particular urban areas, such as towns like Nanaimo that have been growing significantly. So we'll see in a moment what that looks like. Okay, this is a normal lot. It's on Northfield. I'm not sure of the width of it, but I think it's about 100 feet. And that's a house there in the middle. On the left is another one on the same size lot. Let's take a look what the new zoning does for them. It now puts in 11 units on one of those lots in a residential neighborhood. How exciting is that? Neighbors, all of a sudden, you've got 11 families next to you. And down here in the bottom right, let's see if this works. Over here, you can see this is the lots here. They're putting in the fourth building right here. This is the foundation. So 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings, 11 units, 1,500 square feet. What a deal. And this is a comparable lot right next door. Side by side, you can see the frontages are about the same. Whoops, went the wrong way. Oh, okay, so that was the before picture, and this is the after picture with the two lots side by side. Okay, so initially with the OCP that was put together at great length, these were the ones that were planned for higher density, R5 zoning. These in the darker color here. Let's take a look at it now. Do you see all the yellow? That's now all the high density zoning. You'll recognize the neighborhoods, Departure Bay. Then we've got Hammond Bay Road going all along here to the north end. All these single family homes are now R5. What's that mean? That next door to you, somebody can put in 11 units or more. I don't even know what the limit is. But this can now be done in any of the R5 areas, the yellow areas. Does not require rezoning. It's already zoned for it. It's allowed without public consultation, which is not very neighborly of our government here, and not provincial, not local, but provincial. It's allowed without council consultation, so they're completely knocked out of this discussion. Bill 44 limits council's ability to manage community development now. What do we have a community for? If it's not to regulate the people here and the confines, the perimeters of the city. We have fewer public hearings held regarding loss of urban green space, and will most likely be ineffective in addressing the housing crisis, as experienced in California and New Zealand. It's turned out to backfire on them in both those areas. Fat fingers. Okay, here are the challenges that Bill 44 is doing. It's eroding local governance. So all of a sudden now, our city can't even govern its own city with legislation. What's that saying? It's the environmental impact of this high density housing. The strain it puts on the infrastructure, I'm sure some of the councilors could speak to that, what it's currently at, and how devastated this will be once you increase the number of units on lots. Effectiveness in addressing the housing crisis. There's skepticism whether or not it'll actually make housing more affordable, because usually what happens, you buy a home for $1 million and you sell 11 at $700,000. Guess who's really getting the short end of the stick? The consumer. And unintended economic consequences. The bill could unintentionally drive up property values, benefiting current property owners, but potentially making housing even less affordable for the new buyers. Can anybody tell me if there's been a change in the last 5 years in the price of housing here? Has it gone up? By a little bit? A little bit more? A whole lot more. My parents first bought their house in Solaire for $90,000 in 1978. Now it's $1.1 million. That's just an example of the whole town. How can people afford that? On we go. The challenges Nanaimo currently has is congestion in the permit process, fewer homes being built due to admin delays, time delays imposed upon emergency situations, time delays in simple permit requests, costly permits, excessive expense, process does not seem fair, no priorities, and the bureaucratic shuffle exists within. So this is part of the congestion that will happen as this starts evolving. It's going to get 10 times worse before it gets half as bad. So, considering these points, do we feel we should change Bill 44? It's causing the erosion of local government, erosion of traditional neighborhoods. Imagine having a 12-plex right next to you where you live in a residential area. Loss of public input because it's being mandated by the province and the power is being taken away from the city. Environmental impact, imagine, how many more extra units in your subdivision trying to feed in the sewer and water system and electrical grid at the same time. And then effectiveness in addressing housing crisis, is this really effective? It's causing more of a chaos than anything else. And the unintended economic consequences. So I know this is fine print, so I'll just read the little headlines and try and make a do with that. So here's what we can do. And this is with help from ChatGPT. You can potentially get legislative amendments through against the current party in power, possibly not, but we have an election coming up. Just dropping a hint. Government response. The current provincial government is led by blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they can be lobbied. Judicial review. Maybe we have to take it to court to see if this is actually fair and legitimate in our society. We are supposed to be a democratic and free society. And how has this been implemented? The word's called edict. Edicts are done in other civilizations, other governmental organizations, not a democracy. Electoral outcomes. We can shift it by getting other people in power. Just because legislation was put in place does not mean it has to stay. You can reverse it, you can cancel it. It is in the power of the people. That's what we're about. Public pressure and advocacy. That's what we need to do with this. We need to show up. We need to show up when it comes to election time, which is October. So let's show ourselves and say, this is wrong. Let's go back to conventional ways. There are other ways. There's other property that can be developed and so forth. It doesn't have to highly densify it. Imagine that in your neighborhood, a 10-unit complex, an 8-unit complex, a 4-plex, a 6-plex, an 8-plex. And all of a sudden, your neighborhood's doubled in population, and all it's done is build higher density housing. Okay. Oh, and there's one more thing. I just dug this up this afternoon as I was brushing this up here. So, as a proactive measure, there's one thing you can do to keep these multi-developments from happening next to or perhaps through your neighborhood. It's create a real estate covenant between you and your neighbors, to the left, right, or all the way down your street. What is it? Anybody hear that before? A lot of properties have covenants from previously existing developers. Wrong. And that limits what you can do with your property, with your buildings, and so forth. Here we're talking about it's a restrictive covenant and binding legal agreements that are attached to property titles. It's not just on legislation, it's the property titles. They restrict what the owner of the property can do with the land, and in some cases also put obligations on the property owner. Anyway, a restrictive covenant is typically is registered without a defined expiration unless changed for 40 years. So what you can do is now you can go ahead and have a covenant with your neighbor. Register it on your title. It doesn't do anything more except it exists there. You say, I don't want anything more than a single unit housing on my property. Did you get that? How do we avoid this? We get it by making a stand We start using legislation against their legislation. That's what it's about. Come on, guys. How many of you are worried about your neighbors getting high density buildings? Anybody? 1, 2, 3. Okay, 5 people, 6. Good. What happens is when it starts happening in your neighborhood, that's when it gets scary. You've got to be proactive on this. And I encourage you, and I have people working on this right now to get the proper legal process done for this so that we can protect our single unit homes. I mean, I don't want to lose mine. It's enough that we have an Airbnb next to us that takes 15 to 20 people on a weekend. So we're working on that part too. But this is something that we can now work on, something that we can take a grip on. Start taking control of the government instead of the government controlling us. It's not fair. We have to stand our ground and ask each of you to think quietly about this. This will be posted up on our website at nanaimotownhall.ca. You can download it, go through it, you can read it, you can research it, you can do some Googling for it. It's about you taking the power in your hands and starting to control our own lives and our homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Frank Pluta. That was wonderful. And we have time right now just for a couple of closing remarks. And so I'm going to offer a couple of thoughts, and then we'll invite Frank back up to offer a couple of ideas. We can bring up the lights here too, the house lights. And so again, thank you all so much for your presence. We could hear a pin drop in here tonight. You're all leaning forward, engaged, listening. You know, I could just feel the wheels turning in people's brains. It was just fantastic. And this is our vision for the town halls, just what we did tonight, that we take form in the public square. We talk about important issues. We give you room to ask questions. Now there's a next step. Okay, there's a next step because we're not done, right? Because if we go home tonight without action, we're going to wake up tomorrow depressed and feeling that overwhelmed by the world and that we want to move to Mexico. Does anybody else ever entertain those? Raise your hands. Any thoughts of moving to Mexico or some Siberia or somewhere other place? Yeah. Okay. We share those thoughts. Now, we need to be part of the solution, right? And, you know, it's too easy to look to mainstream media, which we call legacy media, to tell this story. If you haven't figured it out, they're just broadcasters. They're not reporters anymore, right? So they're being told what to say. So it's time now that we take the media back. You with me on that? Okay, absolutely. Now here's the thing. Guess what? You're the media. You're the media. How cool is that? In today's technology, you get to be the media. And we've done a fantastic job today recording tonight's event. And we need your help now to be the media and to broadcast this out to your friends and family. Okay. And so please visit our Facebook page. You can share simply from there. All right. There is a little piece of paper around. Please take that home. Okay, check out, like our Facebook page, share the post, have conversations with your friends and family about what tonight was about. Please, we need you to do that. All right. As we were preparing for tonight's talk, I had a dear friend say to me, you know what? Do you really think this is going to make a difference? He's a well-meaning person, and he asked that question. And I paused, and at first I was kind of like, he's right. And then I thought back, wait a second. I thought back to the first town hall meeting. Okay. And some of you were there that night, and you had the opportunity of listening to both a haunting, it was a really riveting story that Nurse Lana had shared, right? And she shared what it was like going to work at the Nanaimo Regional General Hospital, right? And her story was so complex and just, it was so difficult to listen to that anybody would have to go to work in that sort of environment, right? And we didn't really have a solution. Lana didn't have a solution, but we knew her story needed to get out. But you know what? In the days after the town hall, our first town hall, that story broke and it went viral. and it went all the way to Ottawa, and Pierre Poilievre picked it up. He referenced it in Ottawa, okay? And then shortly afterwards, he introduced new legislation, okay? A private private members bill, okay, that protected workers in their work area from having to breathe in toxic smoke of like crystal meth and whatnot. That's what she was having to deal with. Awful. Okay, and then shortly afterwards,